Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles. You're watching Eagle News International. Now for the headlines. President Marcos Jr. arrived in Tokyo for the 50th commemorative ASEAN Summit Friendship and Cooperation Summit. Southeast Asia and Japan are teaming up. Leaders from both regions are meeting in Tokyo today, and their agenda has two key points: boosting the economy and countering China's growing influence. And a tragic story today. The Israeli army just admitted it has killed 3 hostages in Shejaya, a battleground neighborhood of Gaza City, after mistakenly identifying them as a threat. President Bongbong Marcos Jr. arrived in Japan to attend the 50th commemorative ASEAN-Japan Friendship and Cooperation Summit. The president, accompanied by First Lady Luis Araneta Marcos, reached Haneda Airport at 7:13 p.m. Japan time. In his departure statement at the Villamor Air Base in Pasay City, the president said this year's last ASEAN-related summit serves as an opportunity to affirm the Philippines' position on current international issues and advance its interests.
It is also an opportunity to welcome the conferment of comprehensive partner status to Japan, ASEAN's trusted and reliable partner in peace, economic development, and community building for the past 50 years or so. The commemorative summit will feature 3 sessions, each with a particular focus within the ASEAN-Japan framework. The first session will take stock of Japan's contribution to ASEAN's community building efforts, as well as Japan's consistent support for ASEAN centrality and the rules-based international order. The second session will feature heart-to-heart partnership across generations. We will recognize Japan's commitment and steadfast initiatives in promoting friendship and camaraderie amongst the peoples of ASEAN and Japan, to include the Japan East Asia Network of Exchange for Students and Youth program. The last summit program will be on co-creation of economy and society of the future, and I will bring the Philippine economic team led by Secretary Fred Pascual to participate in those talks.
And Southeast Asia and Japan are teaming up. Leaders from both regions are meeting in Tokyo today, and their agenda has 2 key points: boosting the economy and countering China's growing influence. Beijing claims almost the entire South China Sea, a vital trade route. This aggressive move has ruffled feathers across Southeast Asia and even alarmed the United States. As a close U.S. ally with its own territorial disputes with China, Japan is beefing up its military and security cooperation in the region. A draft statement reveals a commitment to strengthen security cooperation, especially at sea. Leaders will also emphasize a free and open Indo-Pacific, peaceful conflict resolution, and respect for borders. Japan is already taking steps. It's lending the Philippines millions for new Coast Guard ships and a radar system, plus starting talks on allowing troops in each other's territory. Malaysia is next in line, potentially receiving rescue boats and drones. In September, Southeast Asia's militaries held their first joint exercises, even though Indonesia insists they were for disaster relief and patrols and not combat. While not thrilled with the summit's focus, Beijing claims it supports cooperation that builds trust and promotes development among regional countries.
China maintains that cooperation should be conducive to strengthen mutual trust in the region and promote common development. We hope that certain countries could do more things that is conducive to promote common development and cooperation, not targeting a third party.
To other news tonight, the Israeli army has killed 3 hostages in Shejaya, a battleground neighborhood of Gaza City, after mistakenly identifying them as a threat. The army identified the hostages as Yotam Haim and Alon Shamriz, taken from kibbutz Kefar Aza during Hamas's October 7 attack, and Samer El Talalka, taken from kibbutz near Am. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu expressed deep remorse over the tragic incident and called it an unbearable tragedy. Army spokesman Daniel Hagari stated that the military bears responsibility for everything that happened and believes that the 3 Israelis either escaped or were abandoned by terrorists who held them captive.
במהלך הקרבות בסג'איה, כוח צה"ל זיהה בשוגג 3 ישראלים חטופים כאיום. כתוצאה מכך, הכוח ירה לעברם והם נהרגו. לאחר הירי, במהלך סריקה ובדיקה, עלה חשד מיידי לגבי זהות ההרוגים, וגופותיהם הועברו במהירות לבדיקה בארץ, ושם זוהו החטופים.
The IDF believes the 3 men either escaped their captors or had been left behind due to the fighting in the area.
אנחנו מעריכים ששלושת הישראלים, זיכרונה לברכה, או ברחו או ננטשו על ידי מחבלים שהחזיקו אותם בשבי, ובמהלך הימים האחרונים, או אולי היממה הזאת, אנחנו עוד לא יודעים את הפרטים האלה ואת העובדות האלה, הם הגיעו לנקודה שהם הגיעו. צה"ל מביע צער עמוק על האסון, ומשתתף בצערן של המשפחות, יהי זכרם ברוך.
Israel is still gathering facts about the fatal shooting and has communicated lessons and instructions concerning the identification of hostages in battle zones to all IDF forces across the whole Gaza Strip.
זהו אירוע עצוב וכואב לכולנו, וצה"ל נושא באחריות לכל מה שקרה. התחלנו בתחקור האירוע באופן מיידי. מדובר באירוע טרגי אשר התרחש באזור לחימה, שבו נתקלו הלוחמים בימים האחרונים וגם היום במחבלים רבים וניהלו קרבות קשים.
The only difference from our point of view is not the intent, but the capability. If they had the capability, they would have killed every last one of us. And they didn't, because we fought back, and sometimes with incredible odds. I mean, mothers fought with fingernails. There's a difference between the deliberate and systematic murder, maiming, and menacing of civilians, which is what terrorism is, and the unintended consequences, unintended casualties that accompany any war. And this is the entire difference.
Calling on Israel's government to do more to free hostages, hundreds of protesters gathered in Tel Aviv.
The only way to release the hostages alive is by negotiation. Not fighting is good, but you can fight after that. You can fight now for 2-3 years, but first release the hostages.
Because there's no deal, because Israeli government, they said they do everything. They say that the hostages is first in their considerations, but it doesn't seem like this. It doesn't look like this.
Israel reopened an aid crossing into Gaza on Friday as the U.S. urged more restraint in its offensive against Hamas.
And that's, of course, very good news. So I think it's good news. But there's not, and I think what we now have to work on as well, how can we make sure that these trucks can go everywhere in Gaza? And not just in the south of Gaza, but also to the north of Gaza.
U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan called the decision a significant step and emphasized the need for greater care for Gazan civilians.
Yesterday and today, I've met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his war cabinet, President Herzog, and a range of senior officials. We discussed the ongoing war and military operations. We discussed our shared objective of ensuring that Hamas will never again pose a threat to the state of Israel, while minimizing harm to civilians, while ensuring the increased and sustained flow of humanitarian assistance into Gaza, and while working day in and day out, hour by hour, to secure the release of all of the remaining hostages so that they can return home to their loved ones.
Meanwhile, sirens warning of incoming rockets from Gaza sounded in Jerusalem for the first time since October 30, sending residents scurrying for cover. The rockets all hit open ground or were intercepted by air defenses. The U.S., which provides billions of dollars in military aid to Israel, has strongly backed its response to Hamas's attacks, but has voiced increasing concern for civilian casualties and the long-term plan for Gaza.
Look, we all want it to end as soon as possible. And as I said in my opening statement yesterday and today, it could end today if Sinwar did the right thing and just laid down his arms and surrendered and gave the hostages back. That doesn't look likely right now, this war that Hamas started. And Israel has a right and responsibility to continue to conduct this war to protect their people and to protect their nation. Again, how long that's going to take, I can't predict. And we're not dictating terms to the Israelis about how long it has to take. It has to take as long as they feel they need to take to be able to eliminate this threat. But obviously, we all want it to be over as soon as possible. We don't want to see a single more innocent civilian killed or wounded. One is too many. We've said that over and over again. And we're working hard with the Israelis. And Jake's doing that right now to get a better sense of what they can do, as I said in my opening statement, to be more surgical, to be more discriminate in their targeting. That's important. At the same time, it's important that they have the tools and capabilities they need to go after a truly genocidal threat represented by Sinwar and these Hamas terrorists.
National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan stated that negotiations were underway to secure the release of more Hamas hostages, but he was neither optimistic nor pessimistic about further releases occurring anytime soon.
Look, here's what I will say. I can't characterize myself as optimistic or pessimistic because, we're talking about not just the people who are being held in captivity, but their family members who are waiting hour by hour, day by day, to learn the fate of their loved ones, to know when they're going to come home, when they'll be able to embrace them again and hold them again. And so I don't want to be in the prediction business with something as heavy as that. What I will say is that my meeting with the director of the Mossad last night, we were supposed to meet for about 45 minutes. We ended up meeting for more than twice that because we had a very detailed and intense conversation about how to move forward to try to secure the release of all of the hostages. Ultimately, that will be something that we have to work in a very sensitive way between the U.S. and Israel, working with Qatar, with Egypt, with other actors. And so I will leave that conversation where it belongs in those sensitive channels. But I will just say this has seized the attention from the very first day, the President of the United States and every other senior member of his team. And just this week, the President met with the families of the American hostages to reaffirm for them that we're going to do everything in our power, working with our Israeli counterparts to ensure that every hostage comes home safely. And I'll leave it at that for today. Thank you.
Fierce clashes continue across northern and southern Gaza, with Israeli forces encountering tunnel shafts at numerous locations, including schools and mosques. The heaviest fighting remains concentrated in Gaza City, where a recent battle erupted at a school in Shujaiya, a densely populated district known for its affiliation with militant groups.
An operational update: Israeli forces continue to do battle with Hamas terrorists dressed as civilians and fighting out of civilian buildings in Shujaiya, Jabalia and Khan Yunis. Yesterday, Hamas terrorists used a school in Khan Yunis as a base for shooting RPGs and anti-tank missiles at our forces. We uncovered long-range rockets and an underground combat compound in the area of the school and directed an airstrike on it. We also searched and dismantled a Hamas military compound in a school in Shujaiya. Israel repeats its call for remaining Hamas terrorists to surrender, as so many, but not enough, have. Earlier, over 70 terrorists emerged from the Kamal Adwan hospital, weapons in hand, and surrendered. The Israeli Defense Forces releasing this image just minutes ago. Those terrorists were apprehended and transferred to field interrogators from Israeli military intelligence and the Shin Bet for further questioning. We think it is outrageous that international officials from the World Health Organization and elsewhere are yet to condemn or even express concern about Hamas converting hospitals in the Gaza Strip into military bases. To them we say, you have not only let us down, you've not only let Palestinians in the Gaza Strip down, you've let down the whole world and the whole architecture of global governance, because this terrorist abuse of hospitals has been happening under your watch, and you continue to cover up for it and be complicit with this abuse of protected facilities through your shameful silence. We call on all Hamas terrorists in the Gaza Strip to surrender. It will speed up the decisive end of this war if they come out with their hands above their heads, preferably with a white flag.
A glimmer of hope emerged in the case of 2 Americans detained in Russia as President Vladimir Putin acknowledged talks with the U.S.
Мы не то чтобы отказались их возвращать, мы не отказываемся. Мы хотим договориться, и эти договоренности должны быть взаимоприемлемыми и должны устраивать обе стороны. У нас на этот счет контакты есть с американскими партнерами. И диалог идет на этот счет. Он непростой, но в целом мне кажется, что мы говорим на понятном для друг друга языке. Надеюсь, что мы найдем решение. Но, повторяю, и американская сторона должна услышать нас и принять соответствующее решение, такое, которое и российскую сторону устраивает.
Well, he's right that we continue to talk to Moscow about getting Evan and Paul home where they belong. That those discussions are ongoing, and they're ongoing actively. I'm not going to detail them from here. He's absolutely wrong that his government did not rebuff a serious proposal. There was one put forward, and they rebuffed it. He's just wrong, flat out.
But despite Putin's expression of hope, finding a solution remains elusive. Journalist Evan Gershkovich, arrested in March and accused of espionage, faces continued detention until January. His employer, the Wall Street Journal, and the U.S. denied the charges, calling him wrongfully detained. Meanwhile, corporate security executive Paul Whelan lingers in prison for 5 years now, facing disrupted espionage charges. The U.S. has made multiple offers for their release, including a recent new and significant proposal, but Russia so far hasn't budged.
And I will say that in recent weeks, we made a new and significant proposal to secure Paul and Evan's release. That proposal was rejected by Russia. Shouldn't have to make these proposals. They never should have been arrested in the first place. They should both be released immediately. But we have made a number of proposals, and including a substantial one in recent weeks, and we will continue to work every day to bring Evan Gershkovich and Paul Whelan home.
While Putin's acknowledgement of ongoing talks offers a sliver of optimism, the road to resolving this tense situation remains uncertain. Now, still during his annual news conference, Russian President Putin encountered a technological twist. A student from St. Petersburg, using an AI-generated deepfake of the president himself, asked him about his concerns over artificial intelligence and the use of body doubles.
Здравствуйте. Я студент и учусь в Санкт-Петербургском государственном университете. Хочу спросить, правда ли, что у вас много двойников?
Смотрю, вы можете быть на меня похожи и говорите моим голосом. Но я подумал и решил, что похожим на себя и говорить моим голосом должен только один человек. И этим человеком буду я. Вот так один из наших деятелей шутил когда-то. Вот. Но что касается искусственного интеллекта, да, это мой первый двойник, кстати сказать.
Recent denials from the Kremlin regarding President Putin's alleged use of body doubles coincide with growing concerns about the widespread use of artificial intelligence to create deepfakes, manipulated media that can mimic real people with alarming accuracy. This technology, capable of doctoring videos and audio recordings, presents a significant threat to the integrity of information and the ability to discern truth from fabrication. As deepfakes become increasingly sophisticated and accessible, the potential for their misuse in political campaigns, disinformation campaigns, and even personal attacks raises urgent questions about the ethical implications of this emerging technology. Tensions on the Korean Peninsula are simmering back to pre-diplomacy days of 2017 to 18. General Robert Abrams, a retired military leader, paints a stark picture at a security forum. North Korea, emboldened by its ties to Russia and China, has abandoned diplomacy and unleashed a torrent of missile tests, rhetoric, and nuclear ambitions.
You know, the Korean Peninsula has been on a slow boil since February of 2019. Right? It started at the failed summit in Hanoi. The burner got turned on. And I think what has occurred, the best way to describe it for the last, 4 years is the fire on the burner has been steadily turned up, principally by North Korea. So whether that's ballistic missile launches, test fires, continued development, the full suite of ballistic missiles, off the charts, harsh rhetoric. There was the what's known as the Comprehensive Military Agreement, an inter-Korean agreement signed in September 2018 to build confidence, right? Initiate building some trust, some confidence building measures, right? I like to remind people from May of 18 to basically the summer of 22, we did not deploy 5th gen fighters to the Korean Peninsula. We did not deploy a carrier strike group to the Korean Peninsula. We did not deploy a bomber, conduct, bomber presence missions, in the Korean airspace or to the Republic of Korea or anywhere in the Korean theater of operations. All of these were intended to send clear messages of, hey, we have ratcheted this down. We've turned down our posture, of which we're only rewarded, like I said earlier, by increasing tension building by North Korea, increased violations of Security Council sanctions and resolutions.
Fear of miscalculation hangs heavy. A single spark could ignite a conflict with devastating consequences.
So all of that to say, where we are today, I think the posture is about right. But we have to consider, what is a pathway forward, right? We've been basically, I hate to use this term, but there's no better description. We're at a stalemate. North Korea said, we're not talking to you. And they've been emboldened by the relationships with China and Russia for two different reasons, of course, right? They're providing arms, ammunition, explosives to Russia, and they've really cozied up with China. So they don't have a need right now to talk with us. And, it's a very difficult situation, and the chances for misunderstanding, miscalculation, or God forbid, an accident that could flash into a small conflict, like I said, I think we're back where we were in 2017 and 18.
Hong Kong's police ignited a firestorm of international condemnation on Thursday by offering million-dollar bounties for the capture of 5 overseas activists accused of national security crimes.
We strongly condemn the egregious actions taken by Hong Kong authorities in announcing national security law changes and a new bounty list targeting democracy advocates overseas. That shows blatant disregard for international norms, for democracy and human rights.
The move, seen as a brazen attempt to silence dissent beyond the city's borders, drew swift rebukes from the U.S., Britain, and others. The 5 individuals, all prominent figures in Hong Kong's pro-democracy movement, fled the city after Beijing imposed a draconian national security law in 2020. Now residing abroad, they find themselves targeted by a government determined to reach beyond its jurisdiction and silence its critics.
I've been wanted with other charges, so being on the wanted list is not something new. But being on a bounty list is definitely something new. So I had to look into it, what does it entail, and whether it will give a lot of incentive for the people around me and also in the UK to turn me out or provide any information of sensitive privacy data of me, like where I live or where I pop out at lunch, etc. And it also shows the stepping up of Hong Kong government's intimidation tactics, which they're not only arresting you, they're harassing people around you, then they are trying to offer incentive for people to give out your information. And that's a really big step up from them.
We deplore any attempt to apply the Beijing-imposed national security law extraterritorially and reiterate that Hong Kong authorities have no jurisdiction within United States borders, where the advocates for democracy and freedom will continue to enjoy their constitutionally guaranteed freedoms and rights.
Britain, in a show of solidarity, summoned the Chinese ambassador to express its deep concern and demand clarification. The Chinese government predictably responded with defiance.
We deplores and firmly opposes certain countries tarnishing China's law enforcement. The five rioters undermines China's national security, and it is in line with international practice and China's internal law, and national security laws of other countries, including the US and the UK, also have extraterritorial effect. UK and the US, so by endorsing and supporting the rioters, have exposed their ill intention of destabilizing Hong Kong. I want to stress that Hong Kong is China's Hong Kong. Hong Kong affairs are purely China's internal affairs and brook no external interference. China is unwaveringly determined to safeguard its sovereignty, security, and development interests. Relevant countries should respect China's sovereignty and the rule of law in Hong Kong and stop interfering in China's internal affairs.
President Marcos Jr. isn't letting El Nino dry up his plans for a water-secure Philippines. He's extended a hand towards the private sector, urging them to join forces in bolstering the country's water supply, especially for areas facing the El Nino's scorching wrath.
With the El Nino projected to last until the second quarter of 2024, we must prioritize the repair of water pipes to prevent leakages and the completion of ongoing water supply projects to ensure that we have adequate supply.
This call to action came during the inauguration of Maynilad's Poblacion Water Treatment Plant in Muntinlupa City, a timely project considering the El Nino's grip expected to linger till mid-2024. The 11 billion peso facility, tapping into Laguna Lake as an alternative water source, promises to quench the thirst of Parañaque, Las Piñas, Muntinlupa, and Cavite with an additional 150 million liters per day.
Of the efficiencies of the supply chain, all of this will be affected if our water resources are inadequate. And that is why we have now begun in government a very accelerated effort to prepare for that. We, for all intents and purposes, we have a good buffer until maybe the end of the first quarter. Now, what we need to do is to prepare a further capacity so that should the El Nino extend to the second quarter of next year, we are still, at the very least, able to supply potable water, especially in the urban areas. We are able to supply our agriculture. We are able to supply our industry.
But the Poblacion WTP is just a drop in the bucket. It forms part of Maynilad's ambitious 220 billion peso service enhancement program, aiming to turn the tide on water scarcity and build climate resilience.
This project is a testament to the positive outcomes that we might achieve when the public and private sectors unite for the greater good. I invite the private sector once more to further explore opportunities to collaborate with government in addressing our water supply challenges. Let us continue to work together so that we can provide our people with the best quality services that they truly deserve. Water, although we refer to water and the supply of water as a service, and I am of the view that it is in fact a right. of our people to be able to expect their government to put systems into place so that water is available to all households, to industry, to agriculture.
Beloved Friends star Matthew Perry passed away unexpectedly in October at the age of 54. Today, medical examiners concluded their investigation, determining the cause of death to be an accidental overdose of ketamine. Perry, best known for his iconic role as Chandler Bing on the hit sitcom, had a long history of battling addiction, including struggles with ketamine, while he had reportedly been clean for 19 months before his passing. The medical examiner's report revealed a complex picture. The report states that the ketamine was the primary cause of death, with drowning, coronary artery disease, and the effects of buprenorphine, a medication used to treat opioid addiction, listed as contributing factors. The manner of death was ruled accidental. Indulge your inner chocoholic. Today, on National Chocolate Covered Anything Day, we're celebrating the magic of roasted and ground cacao in all its glorious forms. Jane Kathleen Gregorio joins forces with Chef Melissa Giz to present a tempting array of food creations adorned in the irresistible embrace of chocolate.
Whether you like to dip it, spread it, coat it, or drizzle it, there are multiple ways to enjoy National Chocolate Covered Anything Day. Eagle News caught up with Melissa Giz, a corporate chef of over 13 years, as she uncovered the hot topic of covering things with chocolate.
People, when they hear chocolate, they get happy. Chocolate-covered desserts are a way to add richness and complexity to any dessert. They're the perfect way to dress up a meal. When you add chocolate, you can use it on cakes, cookies, candies, fruit, or you can freeze it. I love chocolate-covered gummies. It's just amazing. I buy them. I usually don't make them. The weirdest combinations I've seen, and I've seen people eat, the very weirdest is chocolate-covered crickets. They sell them in Nevada on the highway. Something that is actually good, but you wouldn't expect, is dark chocolate-covered bacon. And it's salty and sweet at the same time, and it's really good. My favorite, though, is to use white chocolate. It's not milk, but it lacks the bitterness. It's almost like sweet butter.
According to Chef Melissa, you don't have to be a chef in order to master the art of melting chocolate.
For me, my preferred way is called the double boiler method. You take one pot and you put it on the stove or your heating element, and you put water, and then you fit the bowl in the pot so it creates a seal, and you turn on the heat, and the water should create steam. You put your chocolate in and you stir it, scraping the bowl and turning it over until it's completely melted. The second method you can use is the microwave, where you can put it in a heat-safe bowl, go 10 seconds at a time, open it up, scrape the sides of the bowl with the spatula. If it's not completely melted, do 5 more seconds. Do it in increments. As soon as you see it melted, that's good enough. It doesn't need to be super hot. Once you hit a certain temperature for chocolate, it becomes unusable, so be careful with that. So you can just take things that are in your pantry to make nice chocolate-covered treats. It's an extra special touch to whatever you have, and it becomes a completely new dish. I have some old pretzel sticks in the pantry. They're just kind of salty, but you want salty and sweet. Melt your chocolate and throw the pretzel sticks in there. If you have some bananas that you might have a hard time to finish, dip the bananas in chocolate. Everybody will come after it. Or you could also do strawberries and also graham crackers. And to make it even more special, if you have some sprinkles, while the chocolate's still slightly melted, just sprinkle it and it becomes nicer.
Whether you're hosting a party or just wanting to give your plain snacks a fancy makeover, chocolate-covered treats are a great way to sweeten someone's day. In Corpus Christi, Texas, I'm Jane Kathleen Gregorio, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
Finally, in our news, in a clash of generations, French Phenom Victor Wembanyama outshone NBA legend LeBron James as the San Antonio Spurs finally ended their 18-game nightmare, crushing the Los Angeles Lakers 129-115. 2 nights after heartbreaking loss without James, the Spurs, led by a career-high 36 points from Devin Vassell, buried the ghosts of defeat. 7 players, including Wembanyama, reached double digits for San Antonio. The 19-year-old rookie, already drawing comparisons to a young LeBron, lived up to the hype with a monster double-double, 13 points, 15 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 blocks, and 2 steals. He's now logged 5 games with multiple blocks and steals this season. James, the 4-time champion, turning 39 this month, battled hard with 23 points, 7 rebounds, and 14 assists. But without Davis, Russell, and Reddish, the Lakers trailed from the tip. James electrified the crowd with an early steal and dunk, but the Spurs built a 25-point first-half lead and refused to let go. Los Angeles fought back, cutting the deficit to 4 before halftime, but the Spurs maintained the pressure. The third quarter was all San Antonio, outscoring the Lakers 29-25 to take a commanding 98-87 lead into the final frame. The Lakers emptying their bench, the young Spurs relished the sweet taste of victory, their first since November 2nd. As always, I'll end the day on a thoughtful note. Our ability to look back and smile at our past is proof that God's plan is to keep us moving forward. This has been Eagle News International. I'm Alma Angela. Stay alert, stay informed, because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.